You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram.
Hi, this is Sam Arthur from Costa Rica Cricket. I'm the president of the Costa Rica Cricket Federation, and you're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly podcast. And on the podcast, we have started a new series on the podcast looking at associate nations within cricket and how they are developing the game in their country. Many of us cricket fans know so much about the established cricketing countries and not enough on the associate nations who play cricket. So it would be nice to learn more about those associate countries, and via the podcast, people can also learn more as well. For today's Associate Cricket Series episode, we are discussing all things Costa Rica cricket. Joining me to discuss and talk all things Costa Rica cricket is the president of the Costa Rica Cricket Federation, Sam Arthur. Sam, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here on the podcast.
No worries, Sam. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure to speak to you about all things Costa Rica cricket, because a lot of people may not associate a country of Costa Rica to be a part of the cricketing world, but they do have a cricket team. They do play cricket, and Sam will tell us more about that as we get into our chat today. So I'm looking forward to it, Sam, and I'm sure people listening and watching to this episode will look forward to hearing what you have to say about Costa Rica cricket and learn more about what you're doing and the good work you're doing over there with Costa Rican cricket. But Sam, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I'd like to take them back to when they first got into cricket. And it's been very fascinating listening to people's memories on how they started to get into the game of cricket.
Right.
So Sam, let's go back to the very beginning. Growing up, I know that's a long time ago. What were your earliest memories of watching, playing, and even going to the cricket? And who were some of the cricketing idols that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Well, I started playing cricket, or at least learned the sport, when I was 8 years old. And one of my cousins, I still always call him and I tell him the reason why I'm here in Costa Rica as a president of the federation is because of you. I always tell him that. And growing up, I have had some very good cricketers as idols, like Kapil Dev and Vivian Richards. Brian Lara, Ravi Shastri, these were the people that I was looking at. And obviously, Clive Lloyds, Gary Sobers, one of the greats, obviously. And even when I played cricket, I played in the district level. I wasn't very much, I was more a bowler, but not very much into, not the best cricketer, so never got beyond that. But always had the passion, always liked to watch people play, always was on there when there's a game. And so that's all my school. I grew up in India. So in India, we focus more on education rather than sports. So obviously, I slowly deviated from the sport. And when I finished school and when I went to university, obviously, I was not into any sport because focusing more on studies, but still was playing backyard cricket. Obviously, every chance we get, we'll do play backyard cricket. Now they call him Creole, which is obviously very funny. And I came to Costa Rica about 18 years ago. My wife is Costa Rican, so that's why I came here. Yeah. And when I came to Costa Rica, one day I was at meeting a person at a bar. There was another stranger who came to me and he asked me if I was an Indian. I was like, yes, I am an Indian. And he asked me, do you play cricket? I said, yes, I used to play cricket. And then the next question was, would you like to play cricket? I'm like, are you joking? That was my question to him. Like, are you joking? I'm like, no, I'm not joking. Would you like to play cricket? And I said, yes. And so that's when we introduced ourselves, Mr. Philip. And And then he said, "Okay, this weekend we're going to play cricket at this ground. We're going to coordinate with you, and you just have to join us." I said, "Fine." And I said, I don't have any gears because I never knew Costa Rica would play cricket, and
Yeah.
I knew that I would have to play for a team.
Mm.
And so all I had was some sweatpants and a white shirt. He said, "Just come with a white shirt, that's fine." So a white T-shirt and some black sweatpants, and just went there and we played. And there I saw two full teams playing cricket. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And so from then on, my involvement in cricket started in Costa Rica. Back then, my predecessor, who's an Englishman, his name is Richard Illingworth. He was the one. He's a he's the one who actually reinitiated the sport in Costa Rica, because of his passion towards the sport. And development started after he actually took over, or it's not taking over. Actually, he is the founder of basically the federation. So, and that's how he got me in. He asked me if I would be interested in teaching cricket for some of the kids that come up from a disadvantaged families. And like I said, yeah, no problem. So that's where I started my development career, and started teaching them. 9 years later, one of the kids from that school turned out to be playing for the national team, and that's both of us, we were proud about that.
Yeah.
And so slowly we started expanding our development program.
Yep.
And so it was two schools. Early days, we had only two schools participating in the Stanford Wharton Championship, which is for the youth tournament, like for the youth, under 19 and under 15. Now we got about 50 teams participating every year, and so on different categories. So that's how we came through, and there were many challenges on the way, and but we overcame that, thankfully, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. All that hard work and perseverance has paid off, and here you are today. Have you inspired your children or kids to take up the sport of cricket?
My oldest, he used to play, not for any teams, but he used to practice with me. And every time we go, when I go to coach school, he would come and he would play with them.
Yeah.
But then slowly he's like, it's taking too long, I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's also fun. So as he grew up, he became a teenager, and he had other interests. Now he's playing other sport, but he's still, if he sees a bat, he'll be happy to play.
Yeah.
The other one, I have three children, two boys and a girl, and the other one, he's more interested in digital, all kinds of games, internet games on the internet, and he's got his own friends. I said, why don't you play some digital cricket at least? And he's like, yeah, I'll play, but it's not very interesting as in shooting people. I'm like,
Yeah.
my daughter, for a while, she was like very interested, and then she also just gave up. And then she was like more into any temporary sports, like could be soccer or could be broom ball. And so she's more into that, and said, but how about cricket? But I don't have anybody to play cricket here. I said, there are people you can, like, yeah, like. So yeah, probably I haven't done a very good job inspiring my kids, but they all know what cricket is. They've all have played cricket, and Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's good to hear that. Any particular cricketing memory that stands out for you in your time of the game, whether it be as an administrator or as a player yourself, personal memories from the game that stick out for you?
There are several memories. I mean, one of the things is like when, as I mentioned, when I mentioned about the kid that actually played for the national team. Um, that's my story. Like I always tell everyone, because he comes from a very unfortunate background. Because some of the family members were involved in some unfortunate events. He lost a brother and all that. So he comes from a very a background where it's not, it's nothing to be proud about. But then so when I started with him, there was always a little bit of conflict of interest when I teach him cricket, and then he always wanted to have attention,
Mm,
and always wanted to be the first one to do a batting or bowling or whatever. And if you don't give him the opportunity, then he would just throw the bat and walk away.
yeah.
So we had several sessions talking with him, and I think it's more, we were very patient and very encouraging. I think that might have changed his attitude, which later he admitted that because he does remember when I told him this, and it's like, you used to be like that, right? And like, I know, and I'm sorry. I said, that's okay. It's we all come through that. He was like 9 years old back then
Yeah.
when this all happened, and then slowly as he grew, he matured, and he ended up being one of our good best bowlers in the national team. And Richard, my predecessor, he was like, we need to take him for the Central American Championship in Panama. And I said, yeah, it's a good idea. And so we all chipped in, because here in Costa Rica or other Central American countries, we have to find our own funds to actually travel to other countries
Mm,
to play.
yes.
So I think Craig might have mentioned that. And so we all chipped in, and we took him along, and he was one of the biggest assets for us. First ball, like I think he bowled the ninth over or 10th over. First ball, it takes a wicket. There's nothing more exciting than having a wicket in a first
Mm,
international tournament on your first ball wicket. Boom. So it was a very emotional and fantastic moment. So yeah, that's my one of the biggest. When you ask about memories or stories, this is the first thing that comes into my mind.
yeah.
And other than that, yeah, as a player, I've had several occasions where there are like, you got to go and play, or you lose, then and yeah, it's quite a journey that we've come through.
Yeah. No, I can imagine.
Mm.
Yeah, cricket's a long journey. It's a
It
lifetime journey. That you're always continuing to forge ahead. So it was interesting to hear that story about that player you coached. And just as an example of what cricket can do, change people's lives who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I've always heard that during this series, speaking to associate countries, Sam, is that they talk about changing people's lives from disadvantaged backgrounds who come from poverty, family problems, issues, give them a sense of purpose and a sense of, teaching them life skills
Yeah.
and how to be good people. So It's a fantastic story that you've shared with us, and I think many people can relate to that in their life in general, but also maybe in the sport of cricket as well. So you must be very proud of that, and I can sense from your voice you are very proud of that, and you should be. That's a wonderful thing to do, to change that person's life around. It's after all that tragedy, it's remarkable. And growing and developing the game in Costa Rica, very passionate, very driven, and wanting to develop and grow the sport is fantastic. If you had to give any advice to anyone who is coming into cricket for the first time or wants to play cricket or be a part of cricket in any shape or form, what advice would you give them if they want to enter this great game of ours?
Well, I think you have to be really passionate about what you're doing. Doesn't matter whatever sport you're taking for the first time. I think the inspiration comes when you're involved, and that's what motivates. And there's been many times that I could have given up, but I didn't want to, because sometimes we say, oh, hey, we're going to have a cricket day. We need to have at least like 2 teams, at least 22 to 24 kids. And probably there will be like about 6 kids that will show up. The rest would leave and they go play soccer. Because on our way out, we'll see, like, you're supposed to come and play cricket. What are you doing there? Like, oh, they called us there. Like, no. But I think, it's you have to be passionate about it, and motivate. You got to be, you yourself should be motivated in order to motivate the others. And that's like, if you like you mentioned Alex, that's what he's doing. He doesn't know the sport, but he's very passionate about it. He's learning the sport. He watches games live on YouTube, and anything that he can watch live, he will be there. And next day we will be chatting about it, and it's like, why did they do that, and why did he bowl like that, and why didn't the umpire give him out? Okay. So we walk through it, and I think if I have to tell someone to like, obviously we have a lot of new coaches, and my final advice would be, first of all, you need to be passionate about it. You need to love the sport. Once you learn it, you need to love it. That's how you will be able to teach others to love the sport.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice, Sam. And that's really fantastic. And just enjoy it, have fun, That's what cricket's all about.
Yeah.
Have fun, enjoy it, play with your friends and mates, and you create memories for a long time.
Correct.
So wonderful to hear that about your cricket journey in general, and how you got to be in Costa Rica, and how you ended up, being the president of the federation. And we'll talk about that more later in this discussion as we progress, and talking about all that other stuff. So good to hear about your cricketing journey and what you're doing in cricket, which is fantastic. So Sam, I thought to start this interview on Costa Rica cricket, I thought we'd talk about the history of cricket in Costa Rica, which you touched on a little bit there. You can learn a lot about cricket from its history, and the history of Costa Rica cricket, when I was reading up about it, is quite interesting. How it came to be in this small island country in the Americas. So, Sam, give us a brief overview, if you may, on the history of cricket in Costa Rica, how it became to be in the country.
Yeah. So, cricket basically came into Costa Rica in the 1890s, when the Jamaicans came into Costa Rica to help with the construction of the railroads and work in the banana farms. And so it's mostly in the Caribbean side, and so when they came in, obviously they brought in their culture. You can everybody talks about the whole Caribbean culture when it comes to any sport, not just cricket. It's always a lot of music, always a lot of dancing, always a lot of family parties going on while the game is also going on. So that was the story. And around 1935, there were about 45 teams playing cricket in the Caribbean side. So every town, if you get, if at all you get a chance to come to Costa Rica, you should visit the Caribbean side, and you'll see every town with good names. And every town used to have their own teams, and so there were about 45 teams playing the sport. And then later on, after I think Richard used to mention that it's after the Second World War, there was a less communication or less transport between Jamaica and the Caribbean and Costa Rica. And so that's when they were not able to bring in the equipment. And so they basically moved to other sports like basketball and baseball. But then there was always one group or a few groups of people that were actually following and playing cricket. And I think around the 70s, when there were some expatriates, they were here in Costa Rica, so they decided to play cricket. And then they found out that there used to be cricket in the Caribbean, because there used to be a gentleman by name Lance Spence, who from Jamaica, he traveled to the UK, and he played at a game, and then that was on the newspapers everywhere in Jamaica and the UK. So he was kind of famous. Right now, we play the Lance Spence League in memory of him. And so just to honor him, obviously, because he's one of the pillars of cricket in Costa Rica. And so around the 70s, they started playing between the Central Valley, which is San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica. They used to travel to the Caribbean side. Well, we call them, the name of the city is Limon. And they used to play there. Most of the time it rained off, because Limon is a place where it can rain anytime. It can be very hot and dry, and all of a sudden it starts raining. So it's just perfect weather not to play cricket, but still they played. So they would go play, and the Limon team comes to Central Valley and they play. And so the game, they started playing like that, and they probably had about 4 teams back then. And slowly that went down, because it was the same guys who played, and they got older. The kids were not very much interested in cricket, and back then we didn't have any school program, and so it was only the kid would come only because the father tells him to come, not because the kid really wants to play cricket. So that went about till the 90s, and then in the 2000s is when we started the development program, when Richard did, actually. And in 2006, when I came, we started expanding the program, and then I started going to Limon on a regular basis, to the Caribbean side, on a regular basis to coach in different schools. So that's how we expanded the youth program.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating listening to how cricket was developed in Costa Rica, because I suppose it's the same in other cricketing countries around the world, Sam. Many of the cricketing nations are Commonwealth nations that were either, when the British came and settled there and brought cricket with them, and it's just a natural thing for those countries. Whereas in Costa Rica, about the Caribbean connection there, it's quite interesting to hear about that. They brought the game because the British were there in the in the Caribbean, and then those countries brought the game to Costa Rica, and there you are playing cricket right now. So fantastic to hear about how it all started, how it all came to be. And I think a lot of people watching or listening would learn a lot from listening to you about the history of cricketing in Costa Rica, and it continues to grow and develop, and people are more accustomed with the game. So it's just fascinating listening about that and about the history, and I'm sure more people like me and other people would read up more about it, and it's quite interesting if you take the time and effort to research it and read it, because I think that's the same with all associate countries. They all have a connection to cricket in their past, and that's why they're playing the sport. So fantastic to hear you explain that for us. So thank you for that, Sam.
No.
I thought, Sam, we now talk about the Costa Rica national cricket teams, the women's and the men's teams.
Yeah.
And it'll be good to gain your insights on the two teams and learn more about the achievements, the players' stories, as you touched on earlier, because some of the players come from very diverse backgrounds, as you shared with us just before. So, Sam, for those who may not know a lot about the Costa Rica women's and men's teams, can you tell us more about them and some of the players and their stories?
Yes, absolutely. So Costa Rica, the national men's team always consists of mostly expats, and it could be from England, or we had an Australian back then, and then a few Indian players, and then a couple of the Costa Rican players from the Caribbean side. And so that's how we used to. Our team consists of these on the ratio of expats versus 2 or 3 local players. And later, we tried to bring in more local players, because that was one of our focuses. That we say, okay, we need to say that we do have Costa Rican players in our team, and we've been trying very hard to bring them in. And every time they come, the coming weekend we're going to have a tournament. The local Landsman's tournament starts, and we're going to have one team that is only Costa Ricans, and the other 3 teams are like expats. And so the idea is to actually bring them, expose them to what cricket is, because these players, they are good players. These Costa Ricans, they are good players, but cricket is something that you don't learn from one day to another. You actually you have to learn the techniques, and you have to understand the strategy. And because we need to know why we're doing that, why we're putting a fielder on the point, and why we're not putting one in the gully. So these are something that it only comes through practice. It's not like you can explain to them. I can put a map and I can say, okay, this is where the fielders are going to be. And I need to explain to them, why am I putting those fielders on that spot? So that's why I wanted to bring them. And the idea is, because we want them to get more used to how the game is being played, and that way we can bring them more, get them selected in the national team. Our national team, we've traveled to Peru, we've traveled to, Colombia. We've traveled to Colombia, we've traveled to Mexico several times, Belize several times, Panama, and El Salvador. And so most of the times it's basically expats who are able to finance for themselves and travel. The goal is to eventually bring in more Costa Ricans, find more funding, because we don't want to discourage them, saying that, hey, okay, you guys have to spend a lot of money traveling to go and play to places. So we want to try to raise funds, find sponsors who can actually help us bring in these players, because that's what I'm focused on, and my like the Costa Rica Cricket Board is focused on. And I've already explained that to the other players, and they're in total agreement with that. And going forward, we're going to try to do our best to have more Costa Ricans play in the national team. And as far as the women, so in 2015 we had a women's workshop, women's cricket workshop, and we had Miss Marjorie come from Trinidad, and she gave the whole course, and we had a few. I think we had about 35 participants, all girls and women. And then in 2016, we had Miss Anne Brown John. Have you heard of her? Sure, you should. And Anne Brown John, because she was Richard's friend, and that's when they actually West Indies won the World Cup, Women's World Cup in India. And after the game, she was the coach back then, and she said, "Okay, I'm going on a vacation." And so Richard said, "Can you come to Costa Rica just for 3 days?" And she said, "Yes, absolutely." And so she came. We had about 27 school teachers actually participate, and then right then we started the cricket program for girls and women. And we had the opportunity to send a couple of our girls to Trinidad for the for a local tournament there, and then also for the Americas tournament in the US. So this is where the I would say this is where it all started when it comes to the national team. And so inspiration and the girls, they thought, oh really, so we can play against other teams. And so that's how we encouraged them. We used to have 2 teams, local teams, and now we have about 4 local teams that participated last year. And then we're going to have a selection process for the national team. The girls have already played 2 T20Is in 2 different countries, one in Costa Rica against Belize and one in Mexico against Mexico. And now we're hoping to have at least 3 teams participate in the Central American Championship, and these girls will have a very good team for the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to hear your insights about how both the women's and the men's teams are developing and going about things. They've only played a handful of T20s combined.
Yeah.
So the goal is to play more against other countries, especially around with your neighbors, Mexico, etc. Those other countries, you want to play more against them and branch out to other associate countries in the future. Is that the plan?
That is the plan. And I forgot to mention that we also had an under-19 international tournament where Panama, El Salvador, and Costa Rica participated here in Costa Rica, and that was 2 times. And so those kids that are actually growing up are coming into the senior teams. They are actually getting involved in the senior team, and that's where I'm focused on trying to bring them to play for the national team.
Yeah, that's right. Be proud about representing Costa Rica, playing for your country, which is fantastic, and that should be the goal for any athlete or cricketer that plays to represent their country. In terms of tournaments, T20 World Cups, etc., 50-over World Cups, are there any plans to reach those particular type of tournaments in the near, or not the near future, but in the long term? Are there any plans in place for that in terms of wanting to participate in a global tournament? Now with the T20 World Cup being extended, is that one of the plans for for you as a cricket organization for Costa Rica to go into a tournament like a T20 World Cup, given that it's expanded?
Right. So getting to that point, like now our focus is on now that cricket is included in the Olympics. So now we know that it's easy for us to actually get into the Olympics than playing into a 50 over World Cup, and so if we have them in different processes, like, okay, the next 5 years, this is what we're going to be focusing on. Obviously, T20Is, we will be continue to play T20Is, and just around the region when it comes to Central America, South America, because it's easier for us to travel in the Americas region than going outside. And also, it also depends on how much funding we have and how much sponsors we are able to get. Otherwise, it'll end up having, expats who've been qualified to play for the national team, putting in money and going. But that's not what I'm really focusing on. I'm focusing on actually having local players play. And the goal is to actually participate on the T20, at least on the qualifiers, T20I qualifiers, and eventually get to 50. I mean, here in Costa Rica, I think we played a 40 over. I think that's very seldom, rarely we play that. But it's mostly 25, 30 or 35 overs is the max that we play on a regular basis. But I would really have to. I mean, I would really like to have a team that plays a 50 over match, but right now that's not going to be possible. One reason is that we don't have a ground. We don't have we don't have the facilities for that. High performance is a key role, plays a key role in that, and you need to have paid players who are actually focusing on the game rather than coming and playing just as a part-time player. When it comes to 50 overs, but 20 overs is fine. I mean, we could have players come on a regular basis and have them play. I mean, even with 20 overs, when it's a big challenge when it comes to the women's team. And but yeah, we are encouraging them. We're telling them that's the format. I mean, maybe in Olympics it's going to be T10. I don't know, but T20I is what we need to focus on, and we need to work to see how we can improve the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you noticed improvement by both the women's and the men's teams over the years? Have they gotten better and better year by year, playing more, getting more experience? Are they getting better? Obviously, still room for improvement, of course, but have you noticed that gradual increase in improvement over the years?
Yes, like you said, there's room for improvement, and they've come a long way, and there could be a lot more that can be done to improve their performance. And it has improved, but I would like to see more. When you're like there trying to lead a whole team, you want to see more improvement than just going gradually, right? So yeah, it's obviously it's time. It needs a lot of time, a lot of patience, and we need to find bring in coaches, different coaches for batting, bowling, fielding, and in general, and that's what we lack, and we're trying to work on that. I've spoken to my colleagues, and when it comes to the board, I told them, see, we need to go a step further. We need to bring in someone from a cricket playing nation, and who can actually work with these girls and gents, and so we can actually improve the game much faster than what's happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a gradual process, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Um,
It is. But the challenges are like we are with limited resources when it comes
yes.
to
Yeah.
coaching, right? So I'm a level 1 coach, and I can coach kids, I can coach the youth, I can even coach the national team. But when it comes to high performance and
Yeah.
specific areas, I would like to have someone uh, with more experience who's actually worked on those areas come and help us with that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll talk about that a bit when we talk about the growth and development. You've
yeah.
touched on a little bit of that there. Um, in terms of the teams, can you give us a bit of an age range? From like the teams, both for the women's and the men's. What's the average age or the age range for both teams? Just give us a bit of an idea on some of the
They
age demographics there.
the age range for the men's team would be around 35, like approximately at an average
Yeah,
35, and the girls would be about 30.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that
thanks to
seems
those young kids that actually come
yeah,
in, they
yeah.
balance the age.
Well, there's a lot of older senior players that have played for a
There are,
while.
yeah,
Yeah. So as you said, you want to see the more younger
yeah.
players coming through. And are you, um, giving games to younger players who maybe like 19 or 20-year-olds in the national side? Give them a chance to develop and experience what's it like playing at that level?
That's what we're
Not
doing
quite
this
yet.
year, not in the
Yeah.
national team, but on the national tournaments.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing along with the other senior players. For instance, last year we had about 13 youth teams, which are under 19, that played, and they wanted to come and play with the senior players.
Yeah.
So that was a bright idea. And so this year we're going to have two different series. One is the Landsmans, obviously, and then we'll have the Promotional Cup, which is basically for all Costa Rican players. And that's where these youth would come and join the senior players and form teams. So yeah, we are. You just nailed it. I mean, yeah, but that's exactly where we're heading to.
Yeah, absolutely. And do the under 19 teams train with the senior team at training? Do they come
Yes.
together? And yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
they do.
That's good. Yeah.
Not more in the Central Valley, but
Yeah.
in the Caribbean side, we have
Yeah.
at least two senior teams that are actually coaching along with the youth. Yeah,
Well, that's very good just to share that knowledge and
yeah,
get them involved in the environment. And when they do eventually play for the senior team, they know what to do
yeah,
and all that stuff as well. Um, Obviously, you've mentioned some expats that are a part of the team as well.
mm.
I wanted to ask about language problems and barriers there, because I'm guessing English is not spoken that highly in Costa Rica. It's more Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. That's
Yeah.
spoken. Yes,
Spanish and the local
and the
slangs,
local dialect. Yes,
dialect.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So just talk us through about how they communicate and how they go about with all that. Because I'm guessing different languages, different regions have different dialects, and it's just an interesting question that I wanted to pose to you, because I spoke to that about with Kendall Fleming, the captain of the men's team from Japan. He spoke about that some of the players speak English and Japanese. So I was just
yeah.
wondering what's the case in Costa Rica in terms of the language.
So Costa Rica, like with with the youth and the women, it's basically Spanish. And when I started coaching the kids, I had I was struggling a lot because
Mm.
my Spanish was very limited back then.
Yep.
And but now, thankfully, we have a few young coaches who are Costa Ricans, and uh, they speak the language. Now, when it comes to expats, they're some of them help with development work, but they're not very much involved in development work. But sometimes, let's say, for instance, when I go to some places, I would ask if there are any volunteers who would like to join me and help coaching, and there will be guys who would come.
Yeah.
And yes, obviously, the communication is there's a little bit of challenge when it comes to communication, but then they do manage because there's cricket has a lot of action.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I managed back then when my Spanish was limited,
Yeah.
and they're doing the same. But then, obviously, the end goal is to by the end of the session, you want to know what the kid has learned, and the
Yeah.
research
That's right.
comes out well. So,
Yes. And I guess that's the same for all countries around the world, associate countries. The language barrier is often, if you get someone in from the outside who speaks English, trying to coach someone who's from a particular country, you don't understand the dialect or the language, it's often hard to get the message across. So
that's
you have to try and work around with that. So that was good to hear that. Just to finish off about the national teams, you've already outlined some of the goals and ambitions. You know, do you see the teams becoming more competitive and against other nations in the near future? Do you see them more experienced in being competitive and playing some good cricket? So what are your predictions for the teams going into the future? What do you want to see from both the women's and the men's teams going forward in terms of how they play their cricket, but also how they go about other things within the game as well?
well. That's a very interesting question, because when I spoke to the teams, both men and women, I said, I know the struggles because we've all been there,
Yeah.
and but then we're going to find ways to improve our skills, and we've got to work hard. So I told them within 2 years, let's say let's put a pin on 2 years and say, okay, in 2 years, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to beat this team. We're going to beat this team. And we're going to be much more competitive than we are right now. It's not that we are not competitive now, but going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I just laid the foundation. I said, okay, they'll give you 2 years, and want to see where you are in 2 years. Because this not just 2 years. Well, we started back in 2018 for the women, and the men been playing since 2005 international tournaments. And so we've, again, with the men, we've come a long way through. And one of our best performance would have been in when we went to Colombia. Out of 8 teams, we came out of the third, and that was something we surprised a lot of teams,
Yeah.
and that was good back then. Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Obviously, it's a slow build, but hope the teams can get better and competitive. Obviously, if you have a look at the win-loss records for both teams, they're in the early stages of
yeah,
their T20 national careers for both teams, but they will get better over time. But it's not about the numbers or the stats right now. It's all about the how they improve and how they get better and develop is the crucial, important thing at the moment, as you touched on there, Sam. So
great.
forget about the stats, forget about the numbers, forget about if you get bowled out cheaply or get beaten by a big margin. It's all about just playing, getting that experience, and getting better, which will put you in good stead going long term. And you'll be a better team because of it. And obviously, with more coaching and funding, as we'll talk about
And facilities, obviously. See,
yeah, and
that's the main thing, like funding, coaching, but the facilities is the main thing. So for instance, when we cannot practice at a park, right, because we got the public around, and so we cannot practice much on a football pitch, on a soccer pitch, because the pitch is not even, and so the ball can come straight, the ball can go on a different curve, so there's no consistency there. So facility is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing. and I mean, not having a facility. And so that's something that we are all focused on, trying to find a place like which is dedicated for cricket, where everyone can come and practice, improve their skills. And in case if we have a coaching session, bring in a coach at the facility and teach them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone wishes the teams well, and we'll be following closely on how the teams progress in the years to come, and see what they can do. So exciting times ahead. The future is bright, and you're optimistic, Sam. You're wanting the teams to do better, which is great. And I think that's very important to have an open mind and be realistic at the same time, and say, yes, it's going to be a slow build, but we're going to get there, and we're going to be competitive, and we're going to play some good cricket and challenge some countries around the world.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic to hear that from you, Sam, about the insights about the women's and the men's teams from Costa Rica. So good stuff, and we wish them all the best going into the future.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what you want from all associate countries, actually.
Right. Right.
To get better and develop and be competitive.
So that's the thing, right? Like when you just mentioned that. I mean, because we all talk. When I talk to Ben Owens from Mexico, or when I talk to Ismail Patel from Panama, or when I talk to Dr. Roy from Belize, this is what we're discussing. I mean, yes, we want to be competitive against each other, but we're working together, to see how we can improve the game as a region, because a win for them is a win for us. A win for us is a win for them.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
as a region. So
yeah. No, that's absolutely true. You're helping each other out, and for the common good, which is helping each other out and growing the game in the region, but also in your own country. So I couldn't agree more with that. It's fantastic. I thought we'd talk about the growth and development of cricket in Costa Rica, Sam. I know you've already touched on that quite a few times during our chat today, and I thought we'd talk about it in greater depth right now. In terms of getting cricket into local communities, clubs, schools, and grassroots, etc. And Sam, you would agree that this is one of the biggest challenges facing associate countries around the world, is how do we introduce cricket and promote it? That's easier said than done in a country that cricket is so foreign in, and not a lot of people know about the sport. So I'm sure as a cricket federation, you would ask yourself these questions.
Yeah.
How do you try and introduce cricket into the community? How do you establish grassroots cricket and clubs in local communities? Competitions, pathways, underage tournaments for young players to progress to the national side, as we've talked about. Even facilities, we've already talked about that. How do you have nets and grounds and turf wickets that are available to kids in remote areas in Costa Rica? And, making cricket accessible for everyone, either be on TV or streaming, or to watch the national teams play, or to have access to cricket facilities as well, making it accessible, and getting cricket into schools as well, into their sporting programs. So you can start from that base, and then kids see it in schools and they say, oh, that's an interesting sport. I may take up cricket when they're in school, and give them something to work to. So my question to you, Sam, is what challenges does the Costa Rica Cricket Federation have in trying to grow and develop cricket in the Costa Rica community? And do you see cricket becoming a mainstream sport in Costa Rica in the near future?
Okay. So before I go into the challenges, I need to explain, I need to give credit to those people that actually helped us get into grassroots. Like I said, I've done grassroots, but it's only very limited. But then when we had people involved, like one of the credit goes to several people. One of them is Miss Trudy Poiser, which she used to be the director of education in the Caribbean region. And when I was working with the kids in those area, we had a meeting, and I explained to her, like, cricket. We would like to introduce cricket in the schools and bring in uh, have cricket as one of the sports that's being played in the schools.
Yeah.
And how can we do that? And that's when she helped us. She said, yeah, cricket, I've heard about cricket. My grandfather, my father, they've played cricket, they know cricket, let's do it. And so she spoke to the teachers in their region, and they said, okay, physical education, PE teachers, there's going to be another sport, and this gentleman Sam Marks is going to be coming there, and he's going to explain, and let's have that as part of the sport. And that's one of the that's one of the areas we started our grassroots programs in schools, and that later converted into having cricket schools during the weekends. So what happened once we started there, eventually we went to the national level. So I was able to talk to the national director of education, who was happy to help us out. And through him, we were able to have about 8 different workshops for the PE teachers, a 5-day workshop, and where we had about 200 PE teachers participate in different regions. And then everybody got a certificate. Everybody, their time during the workshop was all sanctioned by the Ministry of Education, and they liked the idea of the sport, but not to all the 200 were 200 of the professors or teachers. They were happy to introduce the sport in their schools. Most of them did, but it was just like throwing seeds on rocks where they just grow and then right. And but then some of them actually continued, and we worked with those people that continued. We tried to reach out to the people that were not interested, wanted to find out what would make them interested. We tried to work with them, and but those were the challenges. One is obviously the willingness of people who wanted to help out, because as a federation we don't have development staff who could actually go to all these places and work with them. We have a manager who actually reaches out to all these teachers after the workshop to follow up with them and see if there's anything we can help them out with. We had plastic development kits, so we would provide them with kits and that they can actually use. And they've said, okay, let's have a competition during the end of the year. And so in 2018, we had about 60 youth teams participate, all modified cricket with plastic kit and all. And then in 2019, so we were totally depending on the schools, right? In 2019, there was a teacher strike, and all our efforts went down. And then now we started thinking, so what can we do to improve this? So what can we do to not depend on school teachers? And then that's when we came up with the idea of working with the committees, the local district committees or the town committees, which is associated with the National Olympic Committee. And so when we started working with them, it was encouraged. Most of the time, the directors were very happy to have us. They said, okay, yeah, we do have 1 or 2 coaches. You can coach them, you can train them, and they can teach cricket, and we'll be happy to help them out. And so that's what we did. In 2019, we started bringing in coaches from these committees and teach them cricket, have workshops and teach them cricket. Again, the challenges come when it comes to willingness about, okay, it's a sport that I'm still learning. How am I going to teach the kids to be very competitive? Like, no, don't worry about being competitive. let's start as just playing. Let's start to understand the game. And there are a lot of resources online. There are a lot of resources that you can learn, and just go, hey, we are open to answer any questions you have. If you want us to come teach the kids once or twice, we're happy to do that. But we would like you to help us with that. And so that being said, uh, here we are in 2024. We're hoping to have about 12 committees, 12 teams from 12 different committees participate in the national games as an exhibition game, cricket as an exhibition game. So that's one of our biggest achievements. Again, the challenges comes to facilities and coaches. So so that's we're trying to work something out. We're trying to work out how we can improve. ICC has done a great job bringing in the digital materials for coaching sessions, and then in the region we've had many other workshops where we can actually send coaches. So working on that to overcome that challenge. So once we have better coaches, we're hoping to see a better result.
Yes, absolutely. That's obviously the biggest challenge is getting the right coaches and resources to apply to certain players and teach them how the game works and the basics. So it was good to hear about your thoughts on that and what you're going through in terms of those challenges. I just wanted to talk about the school program. I did hear one story from Jenny Thompson from her World Cricket Tour. She said she went to Costa Rica on a tour, and she went to a sporting program or school program which was on the side of a volcano, which I thought was a bit interesting. Tell us a bit more about that, because it sounds pretty interesting. On the side of a volcano, which is not where you want to be, I suppose.
So Costa Rica, we have about 4 volcanoes, and 2 of them are active. And it's not like spewing a lot of lava or anything. It's all of a sudden you'll have a big smoke, and then it'll calm down. And so the place where she went, it's a very beautiful place, like very scenic, right? Like if you're talking about Costa Rica being a paradise, that'll be the place. And so one of the coaches there, or one of the teachers, who was a daughter of a player who used to play cricket with us a long time ago, about 25 years ago. And because she knew the sport, she was like, when she heard about cricket in Costa Rica, she's like, yeah, my dad used to play. And then as a teacher, she just mentioned to the director, why don't we introduce cricket in the school? And then they reached out to us and we said, yeah, absolutely. And that's when we also worked. Now, again, with our experiences with the school, we decided we'll work with the school, but also with the local committee, right? The sports committee. So that way we have a backup plan, just in case the school says, yeah, we're done with cricket. We don't want to continue. But we still have the kids that actually played cricket, but they have a place where they can actually go and play cricket. If the school says, no, we don't want to continue with cricket, they have a backup plan. So we worked with the local committee, and then with everybody decided, they said, okay, let's bring in cricket. And so we started that last year. It's close to a volcano, but it's not dangerous. And you probably might not even smell sulfur or anything that comes out of the volcano. But it's just it's beautiful and very scenic. Last year, the girls came and they participated in the women's tournament. And they were all excited. Another biggest highlight was some of the kids never came to Central Valley. They've always been around there, but cricket gave them an opportunity to come over. And so when Jenny went, I think that was one of our programs that we just started when Jenny came. And so Alex took her there and like wanted to, introduce.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, the girls were very, very excited when they came. And I asked them about Jenny, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When is she coming back?"
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Fantastic to hear that. And good to know that the volcano is not dangerous. So it's all right. So that's good. Good to know. But fantastic. Reaching all parts of Costa
Yeah,
Rica, which is
yeah.
fantastic there. I just wanted to ask about the staff that work with you on the Federation, your team. Can you tell us about the staff that work for the Federation and the impact they have on promoting and growing the game in Costa Rica? Can you tell us about some of them, and who are those people that are contributing to your mission and objectives in growing the sport?
Right. So, as a board, like most of us are cricketers, right?
Yeah.
And we also had we also had the regional director be on. We asked her if she could be on the board, and yeah, she's also on the board, so she can give us ideas on how to reach out to communities and schools. And so they the vice president of the federation, he is also coaching and also playing cricket, and also as the other members of the board. But when it comes to stuff, we right now we have Alex, and then he's got two assistants, Steph and Wendy, and those two girls, they also started from the scratch. Steph used to play. She still plays softball and for the national team, but she had an interest for cricket, and so she was like, "Oh, I would like to play cricket, and I would like to um, improve my skills." And now she has finished a couple of the courses online, and she's attended our coaching session and umpiring session, and she's showing more interest. So is Wendy. So what Alex is the main guy when it comes to administration. He would reach out to people. He would send out notification, and right now he's helping with finding sponsors and donors for the upcoming tournament. And he used to be a reporter, so he's good at that. He's good at reporting. So if you go into our social media like Facebook or Twitter or uh, Instagram, you'll always see pictures, beautiful pictures. Like he's got a skill for that, and I'm very happy to have him around. We're very happy to have him around. And so, cricket wise, he's about average, but when it comes to motivation, he's right there. He would say, "Yeah, this is sport," and he plays. He plays for one of the teams, and every time he would ask me, what can I do? How can I do this? How can I'm like, yeah, sure. And then we will have a coaching session while we're having a discussion. And no, he's been very instrumental for the federation in communicating and in taking the sport around the country. And Steph and Wendy helps him out because they are a little more. They play for the women's team, and they are a little more skilled, and also improving, obviously, and on a daily basis. And yeah, it's fantastic to have them. I've heard like both Wendy and Stephanie, they do coaching sessions for coaching workshops for the teachers and newcomers, and they've been doing a great job, very well.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear that there are some passionate people behind the scenes and wanting to push the sport and grow it, which is fantastic. You need those people on your side. I wanted to talk about a bit of a boring topic, I think, subject of administration, because that's your job. You're basically the president of the federation. and you also go to conferences involving the ICC, which is the International Cricket Council, doing all that stuff, which many people won't know what actually happens behind the scenes. So you just tell us, give us a bit of a snapshot of you as a president. What do you do for those who don't know how it works behind the scenes, and your involvement, dealing with the ICC, etc., about all that associate cricket stuff and going to meetings, conferences, etc. So just give us a bit of a snapshot into your role, basically, and your dealings with the ICC.
Yeah, I'm just itching to say I do everything, but no, it's not true. So it's like as we are a small organization, a small federation, right? And I do most of the communication with ICC. I do most of the pitch prep when there's a game, and they also call me to do umpiring because they would let people know, okay, we're having a tournament, kids youth tournament here. How many people can come and do some umpiring? Like, there might be two, and I might be the third.
Yeah.
And so, literally, I'm open to doing anything, and I'm happy to do help out with anything. But it's also a challenge because I can't keep on, eventually I can't keep on going on like that. But for me, the biggest challenge is to find volunteers and people who would be able to give time. It's not that there are any, and there are not any, but people do volunteer. A lot of people help me a lot, but it's still, we would like to have more, and especially when there's a big tournament like the Central American Championship, we'll need more staff. We'll need more people to help out. And I've basically stopped playing cricket. Well, I do play cricket, but like not in high level, not on a. I said, my teammates, they asked me, no, but you have to play. I said, no, I'm focusing on something bigger than that, because I would like to have more players. I would like to have more players who are able to play for the national team than me playing, right? And that's what I'm focused on. And so when it comes to administration, we also work with the National Sports Authority, which we call them ICO there. Like, I don't know if you can see my shirt. So this is the National Sports Authority, and this is the Costa Rica cricket logo here. And I think there's ICC on the back. So there's communication that has to be done, and they call us for meetings, and there should be a representative. Most of our people are like, okay, let us know if you're not willing to. I'm like, no, I can do it. So communications, meetings. Obviously, we sit on when it comes to having ideas or anything. But on everything, most of the time, or always, we would have a board meeting. I will let them know what's happening so that they're aware of what I'm doing. Not that I'm doing all by myself. So they're aware of what I'm doing, and we work together. That's the important part that I'm trying to maintain.
That relationship,
the relationship.
That's very important. Do you feel like the ICC in general, from your perspective, do you think they're doing enough to grow and develop associate countries? Do you think they can do more? There's always room for improvement. I don't want to get you in trouble, but from your perspective, just from your point of view, are they doing enough as a governing body to ensure that countries like Costa Rica, other associate countries that are a part of the cricketing family, do you think they're doing enough? Can they do more? than they're already
They
doing
can,
at the moment?
they can always do more, right? They can always do more, and they've actually it's improved. Um, uh, when I started, we had a different administration in the
Yeah,
Americas region, and it was just transitioning to another, the current one. And there was always challenges back then. There was always issues with communication, and the responses were not being. I mean, they were not good, satisfying responses.
yeah,
And this I heard from my predecessor, and obviously from the other um, regions also. But with the new administration, it has improved. But I always tell them, I live in a soccer playing nation, and I've seen what FIFA is doing to all these
yeah,
countries. And ICC is not far, right? This is like the last World Cup. Everybody can make the numbers, and obviously the countries that are on the low on ranking, not because they're not doing anything. It's just because there are a lot of resources, and
yeah.
that can be done. And so there are challenges, but in general, it has improved. And we're very happy with the current administration, the way we communicate. They're very helpful. Um, and obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to how.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's I'm very thankful for the people right now, because especially the development office, the regional development officer. He's from Argentina, right?
Yeah.
And he's doing a lot, and the rest of the team, they're doing great.
Well, it's good to know that it's getting better and improving
Yeah.
with the ICC and associate countries. Um, about the distribution model, when that's been released, what were your thoughts on that? When associate countries, in terms of their share of cricket's revenue as a whole, um, were you disappointed? Were you not surprised at all? Did you think they could have maybe given us more in terms of funding and distribution model in the revenue? Your thoughts on that?
Very good question. And no, but I would like the other regions to chip in when it comes to questions like this, because um, Costa Rica as a country, and as what we've seen in the last couple of years, um, our biggest challenge is the funding resources. If we are not able to do certain things, it's because we don't have the resources to do it.
Yeah,
And if we can, for instance, last year they had given us an extra um, extra fee of $5,000, let's say. Right away, we invested in having an umpiring session, and we brought in an umpire. We had about 22 participants, and now we have uh, umpires who can actually help us with youth tournaments. If we didn't have that $5,000
yeah,
per se, we could not have done that.
yeah,
And I can tell them to go into the ICC's application, where you can actually go and learn, or even MCC's website, and do umpiring, an umpiring course on the MCC's website. It's not that all of them would want to do it or are willing to do it. Most of them, they open the app, they start working on it, and then they're engaged in other things.
yeah,
But here we had, for 3 days, we had 22 people involved, all focused on what's happening, and now we have umpires who can do umpiring sessions. So obviously it helps a lot, and but I think eventually it will change. Like, let's say, for instance, 2025 would be a brighter there will be a brighter future for us in 2025. Yeah, it's a tricky question, and could be better, but I'm not gonna say that, oh, we're not getting enough, because I should also thank the people who are working to help us out. So
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
yeah,
It's just a question that many people ask
Mhm.
recently, because it's something that everyone discusses about at length. So it was good to hear your perspective on that from your point of view as an administrator of an associate country like Costa Rica. Obviously, cricket in the Olympics and the T20 World Cup being expanded in 2024, and it's also in the region as well, in USA and the Caribbean. What does that mean for Costa Rica in terms of having the T20 World Cup near your region, in the Caribbean, which is not far away, and having it in the States, in America, and also having the Olympics now including cricket? What would that mean for cricket in Costa Rica?
that there are more opportunities, and the for our young cricketers, there's something to look forward to. Because when I started in 2008, they would only look into something they could play against another team, not teams.
Yeah.
Right? There was only 2 teams and then 3 teams. And now in 2015, when we had the under 19 tournament, that that raised a lot of eyebrows, and kids were like, "Whoa! So we can play international tournament?" I mean, yeah, one day. I mean, if we've hosted them, now we got to go and play there. So we need to prepare you. And
Yeah.
now that they're also going to be participating in the national games, which is a pathway to the Olympics, because for us, the national games is one way to be recognized in the National Olympic Committee. Like, we are associated with the National Olympic Committees, and they've helped us a lot. They helped us with events, and this year they will be helping us with some funding also. Before they would help us with getting drinks for the kids and some snacks for the kids. So the National Olympic Committee, we work together, and they've been very helpful. I'm very grateful to them. And so the T20I, I would say not much impact. It'll impact, but the Olympic definitely is going to impact. There's going to be a big impact with it. Olympic cricket involvement in inclusion in Olympics.
Yeah, definitely, because we'll be on TV, and
Yeah,
obviously the government will put more money into knowing that cricket's a part of the Olympics. Everyone wants to be a part of the Olympics, every country, in all sports if they can.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the same answer that I get to many people when I ask them that question, Sam. It's a big impact on associate cricket more broadly. Not so much for the full members, but more for the associate
yeah.
countries, getting that exposure, and it's on TV and something to.
Yeah. So why T20I is not going to be a big impact for a country like Costa Rica is because, again, it's the TV rights.
Yeah.
We're only going to see highlights on YouTube. I mean, the kids, not me, but and and so it's what's the what's the fun about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's in the region, yeah, it's in the Caribbean and the United States, but it's not on our local ESPN, or it's not on our local Fox Sports, or or local TV.
Yeah.
And so, how are these kids going to be? Like, I have a VPN where I can access live matches. A lot of my friends do. A lot of our teammates do. some of our women also have access to that. But when it comes to youth, to be able to engage them, there must be something like, because it's visual is something very important.
Yes.
Unless once we had a 20-minute program on our local television. Next day, there was a lot of responses that the kids were saying, "Oh yeah, we used to play that game. We used to like they somebody came and taught us that in our school." And that's where it stopped. There's no continuity, right? So I've written to ESPN Star, telling them, "Hey, can you at least broadcast it once, like
Yeah.
some cricket in the Latin America region?" And but it never worked out. But let's see how it comes. But we're going to be. We've already spoken among ourselves.
Yep.
And we're going to try to get people together, whoever is interested, and have them watch the games and
Yeah.
the T20 World Cup. But yeah, I think we could do much more better than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point that you raise about coverage and television and that. Maybe the ICC, they have their own streaming broadcast.
Yeah.
Maybe they could do something. So yeah, no, that's got to be critical in terms of getting people across the game and growing the sport, especially
I
for a major
think
tournament.
I think it's a similar challenges with the other countries in Latin America. It's because the TV rights, right?
Yeah.
And even online, for instance, the matches that we watch on ICC.tv, there is a restriction on Costa Rica. Like there's Costa Rica. If I go in and right away I get a message saying, "Oh, this is not allowed in your country, or it's not available in your country." I'm like, "Oh, come on, it's on a website."
Yeah, it's an ICC event.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I've heard that many people have said the quality of it is not that great, can be improved. Absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully that can be something that ICC look at going into the future.
Yeah.
In terms of that,
well, West Indies have their YouTube page that sometimes they broadcast, but not international. Like the local Caribbean Premier League, the local tournaments are live telecast. But when it comes to international tournament, let's say for instance, India is coming to play West Indies.
Yeah,
it's a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you've mentioned it before, but other people in the region, do you speak to other countries in the region, get ideas, bounce back ideas from those presidents or head of the cricket boards in those countries that are near Costa Rica? So just tell us about that cooperation with those regions and countries.
Yeah, we often do. We have very good relationship with the ones close to my neighbors, which is Mexico, Panama, Belize. We often talk on at least once or twice a month on a regular basis. And then obviously Brazil and Argentina. Argentina is not much with the board, but we have people there. And then Peru, we have friends we often talk. And then Chile. I don't know if you've spoken to anybody from Chile, but
no, not yet.
Very, very. They have a different, completely different idea of where they want to take cricket to, and they're big in beach cricket. So that's what they want to develop, and they were giving me ideas on how to do that, and we've been discussing about it, having beach cricket in Costa Rica. But I don't see it happening in the next at least 1 or 2 years. But we eventually want to take it there. We want to take it close to the towns and then bring it into the towns that are close to the beaches. So And obviously, from the Caribbean, we have on a regular basis, we have chats with Bahamas, Bermuda, Turks and Caicos, Canada in the north, USA not much, but we are like on a contact list. Like we can always reach out to them.
Yeah.
And so as I feel like as we are like a small little community, both north,
Yeah.
North and South America and the Caribbean, we are open to discussion anytime, and there has never been an issue. There's always good communication, and obviously we get closer when we meet at the conference, and then when we come back, we often have a monthly call in the region that actually also helps. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear that cooperation and teamwork, and you're all achieving a common goal, which is the same, and growing and developing the game in the region, but also in your own country. So it's fantastic to hear that cooperation and teamwork. Are you just before we move on? One more question. Are you optimistic about the growth and development of cricket in Costa Rica? Do you think it will achieve great things going into the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have greater dreams, bigger dreams, and we want to just not in the national level, but we want to grow cricket in the region also.
Yeah.
As a region, and so yeah, I'm very optimistic. There are people are getting to know the sport here, and we are reaching out to people who can help out when it comes to resources. And with our performance in the last 2 years, I think when it comes to development ranking, I'm expecting a little better response from ICC.
Yeah.
And also the National Sports Authority. I cannot leave them back because they were the ones. At times, actually, the National Sports Authority were funding us more than the ICC.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if we like I said, we've been talking to everyone about what our challenges are, and we made them to think, and want to see how they can help us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I am very optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got to be optimistic. A lot of the associate countries I've spoken to, they've always said we're optimistic, but we're also realistic at the same time.
Yeah.
But we will achieve our ambitions and goals and objectives.
Yeah.
So it was great to hear you you speak about the growth and development, what you're doing there, the programs, all that stuff, and what you do as the president of the federation as well. So it was great to hear that, Sam, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
We come to the end, Sam. We've got one more topic to discuss in this interview. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure everyone listening and watching has enjoyed it as well, learning more about Costa Rica cricket. I have after this chat. I'll certainly learn more about it. But Sam, I thought we'd talk about what the future holds for cricket in Costa Rica. I know it's very hard to predict the future, but my question to you, Sam, is how do you see Costa Rica cricket and associate cricket going into the future? If you had to look at a crystal ball, predict what the future will be like, how do you see Costa Rica cricket and associate cricket going into the future and beyond? Your thoughts on that?
So we are, like, I would say we're still growing, right? And for me, it's not like we are in a country where cricket is one of the main sports.
Yeah,
we have introduced cricket in the school programs, and so out of the 45 sports that the PE teachers have to teach their kids, cricket is also one of them.
Yeah.
All right. And so we've gotten there, and we've also gotten to where cricket is also being recognized as one of the games that has been one of the sport that's been involved in national games. We want to increase the number of teams when it comes to under 19 women, girls, under 19 girls, and then under 19 boys, and then women and men. And more focusing on getting more local players, getting more involved, like local players involved in cricket, also more into administration, like because we have several associations and we want to increase the number of associations. As we lay the seeds like that, I think not necessarily in the next 2 years, but at least in the next 5 years, we would have Costa Rica, let's say out of the 96, we'll be around the 55 when it comes to ranking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yes, that's being both optimistic and realistic, right?
Yes, no, absolutely understandable. How do you see the future of associate cricket? How do you see that going into?
No, it's actually looking bright. If we go in this space, and as you already know, that Brazil has actually gone from the non-voting to a voting member.
Yeah.
And in the region, if we have about 5 voting members, that itself is a big achievement.
Yeah.
And 10 is a greater achievement. So I think that's where the future is for the associate cricket, at least in the region.
Yeah, more representation, more voting opportunities at ICC level.
So if you have to go to become a voting member, like what I'm saying is in terms of performance also.
Yeah.
So maybe in the next T20I we'll have Brazil, Argentina compete, right? And yes, obviously they should be. I'm hoping that they will increase the number of teams, because I think there's already a talk about increasing the number of teams in the World Cup, both in T20Is and ODIs. So that is also giving a brighter future for associate cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully that continues to grow and develop. And it was interesting to hear your thoughts on the future of both Costa Rica cricket, but also associate cricket.
Yeah.
And the future is bright, but there are a lot of challenges ahead, and hopefully we can overcome those and make cricket a better sport than it is already, and grow and develop the game, and for everyone to enjoy and celebrate the great game of cricket as well. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining me for this Associate Cricket Series episode to discuss all things Costa Rica cricket. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've learned loads. And I think everyone listening and watching would feel the same sentiments, and hoping the best for Costa Rica cricket, and looking forward to see what the teams can do, both women's and men's. Sam, if people want to get in touch with you or the Federation, where can they do that? Where can they make those inquiries?
Yeah, they can reach out to us through our website, CostaRicaCricket.org. They can reach out through Facebook and Twitter, now X, and through Instagram. They just need to drop a message, and we'll be reaching them out. And if they want to reach out to me directly, they can write to s.arthur@CostaRicaCricket.org, and I'll be happy to talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. We will leave links to those in the description of this episode for everyone to access those resources that Sam has mentioned. Before we go, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Most of the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you, Sam, for joining me today to discuss all things Costa Rica cricket. I hope all of you watching or listening to this Associate Cricket Series episode learned a lot about cricket in Costa Rica from Sam. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.